Cuffed aboard the Cosmocraft Nowhere, blared through the Kylix at such a volume, the bass vibrated even through the muting glaze. Or was that just my ears? Libby Kissel's synth-streaked screeching stabbing into my ears. My ship, I call it Nowhere. It takes me back and forth. For now the guard says I have rights, so exercise, of course. My ship, I call it Nowhere. It takes me up and down. For now the guard says, follow me. Oh, I'm in trouble now. The lights, they make me anxious. The smell, it makes me sick. The cuffs, though compere, are the worst. A fire needs a wick. The lights, I see them dimming. The smell is fainter still. The cuffs, though compere, don't let up when gold dogs claim their kill. Cad! I groaned, rolling out of the module to a light in the middle of the corridor running through the ship. To my back, Antiope was still asleep, and the Great Griever knew that after all the sweat and exhaustion of last night, she needed a rest. I shut the hatch softly behind me, closing her into the module and shutting what noise I could out. I didn't bother with shoes, savored the cool touch of the metal to my feet, a jolt to the senses, but, as our instructors had reminded us about being startled in battle back on Wolfthrop, that was just proof one was alive. The silver suitcase still hung on the hook we usually used for coats and colony propaganda featuring Ares with dicks drawn on his face. Ah, right. We hadn't stuffed it back into the cranny. When everyone padded off, I suppose there was just one thing on my mind. Cad was kicked back in his seat, coffee cooled and on hand as he poured it directly into his mouth, extending the can to me. I took it with one hand and twisted the middle dial of the radio counterclockwise. "Aunt's still sleeping," I said. "Please, be quiet." He swiveled in his seat as I slumped into mine. "Oh, I get it. So one wash, it's your supersonic bat hearing, or whatever, and the next, it's your girlfriend. You invited her on board." "Her," Cad snapped. "Not a bomb, Gene." He glanced back at the mouth of the hall, lowered his voice. "Do you have any idea what position I'm in? Pool hits my guts and after everything I've said, they'll never..." His lip trembled. Despite everything, the lack of Nelson's usual morning cheer was as disturbing as it was sympathetic. "Relax," I soothed, fishing out the crew bowl. He handed me the tin box of flakes. "Pool just needs time to cool off. We're all exhausted." "That's just it, Jay," Cad said. "You're the only one who benefits. I mean, your girlfriend, the intergalactic fugitive, gets a place to crash. You get to curl up in a ventilated sex box every night while the rest of us are more concerned with the, galaxy-eating weapon locked away in the cosmic cola bottle." "You're just saying that because Pool's upset." I turned to the windshield. "I know you see some sense in this. That's why you're on the fence." In the distance, a roiling mass of powder blue dust washed over a smattering of nanoplanets. The Blue Wave Nebula. And, for the record, your module could be a sex box too if you just made a move already. "Sage wisdom from the Earl of Loverland," Cad snapped. "You know it," I sneered, "and there's more where that came from." We chewed in silence for several too long avens before Poole marched across the cockpit, planting themselves in their seat to my left and making a big point of not looking over their shoulder at Cad. "Captain," they nodded. "Translation officer," I replied. The atmosphere was as thick as Comet cow milk, a buttery spread I wish someone would just slather across a piece of toast already and take a bite of. I decided to break it as Ush glided into their seat, a black blur, coat drawn around her. black hair frazzled and flying everywhere, not like Ush at all. She hadn't slept. No, none of them had, because of the black hole. I'm sorry, I said. Dranunica, okay? It's not fair to talk like I'm just your captain when I'm really your friend. Ush swiveled in their seat, smoothed out her coat. I'm sorry too. I was more than out of line with some of that stuff. It's just frustrating to feel like things only fall apart when we rely on our feelings. Everyone's pairing off, and where does that leave me? Ush's voice broke, and that made everyone swivel. Ush never cried. I've never been anyone's favorite person. I know I never will be. It's just a lot to get used to. Hey, whoa, I soothed. One, love doesn't have to be hierarchical. I can care about everyone equally, even if I'm being more physically intimate with someone else. And two, I'm not going anywhere, Ush. None of us are. Cad nodded. Not even after, you should say it, Nelson. Poole cut in. That is something Ush was right about. It only exacerbates the situation to act like none of us know what's going on here. I don't intend to leave either, but if we're going to keep living together, we should all be more honest about how we're feeling. It would cut down on, emotional outbursts. You mean violent, I corrected, still seething over the slap. I'm sorry, okay? Poole's 6 eyes closed in a rolling wave of blinks, their scales shifting with the airflow inside the craft. Cad, I'm sorry you had to hear my feelings first from Ush. And Sable, I'm sorry I hit your girlfriend. It's just... Tears slid between the divots in Poole's fine face scales, adding a watery shimmer to the bronze shine. None of you could possibly understand the way I feel about what's happened to my kind. You keep saying that, Ush cut in, but I don't think it's true, Poole. Not completely. Ush, I hissed. What, was she trying to evoke another strong reaction? I mean it, Ush went on. Yeah, it was hundreds of yushes ago, but back on Earth, people who look like how we do didn't exactly have it easy. Slavery, segregation, redlining, genocide. You're not the only one who hurts, you know. She's right, Kat added. Grievers are only grievers because we're not allowed to go home. We may not have known it was your father that... My Simar, Poole grumbled. Not my father or mother, my Simar, my layer. It's sick that your own Simar would turn their hotshot on you, said Cad. Actually, said Poole, it wasn't all that surprising. When I was young, after hatching, during my churlistrawl, my childhood travels, I sought them out. It was embarrassing for them. Kaleidozens are supposed to take pride in learning about the universe on their own, with no hand-holding. Mistakes are a mark of pride. It means you tried and failed, but you still tried. In human culture, said Ush, that's known as neglect. Well, Poole made it very clear to me that we are not humans, said Poole. There's only so much to see in open space. There's lively spots, sure, but a lot of it is just dark matter. I had too much time to think. Got really into watching human television shows. 2 curious kids, a father to give you advice, a mother to hold you and tell you everything will be alright. Sitcoms, I said. They were considered a special privilege viewing back in the academy. Poole nodded. Sitcoms, they confirmed. I sought out my Simar. They were certain episodes where long-lost relatives would reunite, a guest star would feature, the audience would clap and aww. All Poole did was glare down at me and hand me a shovel. They said it would be our first bonding activity, that I would help them dig a lava well for the local Khalids. 4 feet, 5 feet, 6, 10, 12, 15. When we were deep enough, Poole used a ladder to climb out and pulled it up after them. Yuzza, Kat exclaimed in a thin whisper, as if praying. There was no God with me when I spent 8 Aurons climbing out, said Poole. I was just a child, barely 4 feet tall, if that. I thought it must be some mistake, but when I approached Poole, they only sneered at me. Now you are Kaleidozin, they said. Now get out of my sight. Sheesh. And I thought an anonymous soup of DNA made for a dark origin. Cad was the first to speak up. I may not be banished, but I do understand having shitty parents. My own mother abandoned me on Tau Ceti when I was just out of thorough Buildwin Middle. That's why everyone on this craft is so important to me, including you, Poole. So important. I'm sorry if I didn't know about Kimmy. Don't! Poole thrashed the dashboard, pushing away to swivel in their chair toward Cadbury. Don't say her name, please. I didn't mean to shut myself off. I really care about you, Cad. But I just need time. Cad nodded. I understand. I won't bring her up, he said. Let's just forget about Yesterwash and move on. A message came in, and a good customer too. He stroked his stubble. Actually, a lot of good customers. I pulled the message deck up on the visejector. A blue tinted screen flashing out of the glowing blue dot embedded in the control panel. He was right. A who's who of our most reliable, most obnoxious, and most risky customers had bombarded the shared Visa mail inbox. There was a backlog of 25 messages. Did we launch a new ad campaign or something? I asked, clicking through the little library. Like, overnight? You know what they say, said Ush. You make a splash, and everyone else gets wet. Trust me. Cad scowled at one name on the screen. No one's getting wet for Marshall Boners, Cad's ex-boyfriend. Boners, who swore his last name was pronounced Bonners, was worse than a maroon. Red suits had organization on their side, practice, strategic striking. Marshall was an orange suit. The suit dye painstakingly ground from the rarest ombrex roots recessed beneath the thorn-riddled, worm-infested trees out in the peripherals, bucking every law against gambling the colonies had ever tried to bind him in. This took a group of ever-present hotshot-toting lackeys known as the Bonemen to maintain, all clustered around the Lucky 11 casino on Pisces 11, a planet coated in pink sand that had started out with pale white beaches. Where we suggested clients not screw us over, he ensured that they wouldn't, assigning his goons to stake out clients, scour every word of personal information given and not given. Boners dealt in information as his form of contraband, tips for fixed dust disk matches, known drop points for dollar deliveries to colony banks. What he could verify, he used to enrich the lives of everyone on Pisces 11. What he couldn't, he sent the Bone Men to seal up, so as to leave no trace for the no-knocks to come sniffing around. Thorough, ruthless, and according to Cad, a supremely selfish lover. Hence our long absence from the little pink planet. Cad clicked on the message. A video of Boners in his most extravagant velvet robe flickered to life. The Raider's grizzled voice humming out of the speaker on the dashboard. Ahoy, Kylix crew! Been a while since we caught up. I've got enough friends around the galaxy to know you're in a tough spot. Could use a place to dock, collect yourselves, away from prying eyes. This could be arranged easily if you swing on by the luck. Think of it as a favor, for old time's sake. Eh, Nelson? Cad blushed as the video paused and the message ended. He's got some real nerve thinking I'd fall for that. You think it's a setup? I asked, scrolling through more messages. I clicked on Steph Margarine, a customer we delivered to twice or so before. One Ush had spent a considerable amount of time poring over astrophysiological theories with during our drops. Her message could have passed as a replay of the previous. Hi, Kylixers! I haven't picked up in a while. Been thinking of trying some of the blueberry stuff. I hear something went down out in the open? Let me know if you need a place to dock for a few days. Have some time to collect yourselves without worrying about fuel. It could be like a favor, for old time's sake. Hey, Ush.
Creepy, said Ush. They're coached. Poole nodded, compromised. Still, said Ush as Poole handed her a tissue. The doctor wiped her face. Boners is the most connected guy in the universe. He'll know someone neutral to take the blunder off of our hands. Shh! Cat hushed. Spittle sprang across the room with such force that Ush activated her helmet. Don't say it out loud. We should call it the... He tapped his chin. The faint tune of an electric guitar solo floating up from the radio. The Boogie Woogie. Ush produced a napkin from her lab coat that she used to wipe Nelson's spittle from her helmet surface. It's not gonna go super critical just because we mention it by name, Nelson. Not to mention, said Poole, rolling all 6 of their eyes, it's a bit diminishing to reduce a weapon of galactic destruction to a reference to funk music. Haven't you ever heard of jinxing? Cad shot back. Luck is fickle. Better not to poke the beast. You know, they've got you humans pegged wrong, said Poole. In university, I was always led to believe, in time, you'd get easier to understand. Tendon's chittering approached. The little crow-cat scrambling up Ush's leg to beg for a steel biscuit, sitting up in her lap. Me more, he squawked. Feed more. She rooted around in the drawers for a cube-shaped ingot, slipped one to Tendon's grasping claws. Tendon mewled its thanks, licked one of Ush's cheeks, and scuttled off toward the hall. Parasite, Cad called after it, and we all shared a laugh for what felt like the first time in centuries. The lighter mood wasn't broken even when Antiope came yawning out of the corridor, rubbing her eyes and looking and smelling very much like we'd been fucking just Aurons before. Her suit was wrinkled and only halfway zipped, sliding off her shoulders as she leaned over to stroke the wild splay of feathers sticking up on Tendon's head. He clicked his beak, cocking his head as his long black tail flicked in the air a moment, fixing one black eye on Antiope's. Finally, Tendon blinked and snapped at Ant's forehead, peeking a shallow pink scratch above her eyes as he screamed, More! Inside more! Ant waved him aside as he lunged at her, giggling, and Tendon lost interest, slithering down the corridor and out of sight. I dusted the loose feathers off of her suit as she strode in my chair, leaning down to kiss my neck. I didn't know you guys had a pet. We don't, Ush said. Tendon's more like an extortionist. Ant chuckled, sitting across my knees. The act drew attention to how she donned her spacesuit, garishly gold away from the milky silver plating of the Dragoon ship she'd resided in the last year, and I hadn't. In fact, I'd forgotten to put on a shirt. I was grateful then to be too dark-skinned to noticeably blush. To think, the captain in their powder blue boxers. To think, the heiress on the runaway's lap. To think, all that loving last night after all our silly shyness 2 years ago. My groin ached, but I'd never been so happy to hobble off to the med bay for an ice pack. Not now, though. Now there was just Ant's soft lips grazing my ear, her fingers playing across my horns, the beer-like draw of her new breath. Sure, we hadn't cleaned up yet, but the bacteria that grew from Antiope atoms was more than fine with me. Waiting on your orders, Captain? Poole piped up. Oh, right. Yeah, right. Let's get the wash started. Thank you, translations officer. Every time someone new moved aboard, there was the matter of assigning their seat. I was the captain. This was my responsibility. And, although the spot at my right hand had experienced its share of fussing over, that was where the first mate sat. And Cad, for now, forever, was my first mate. Ant couldn't change that. A captain and their girl were close, but a captain and their first mate were closer. Next to Nelson should do. Cad, do you mind? Cadbury grumbled. For Her Highness, why not? Ant took the seat beside him, stretching along the cracked blue leather. I have dozens of maps. Do you... I nodded. You can load them into the Ves ejector. Just don't judge the search history. It gets lonely when you're not here. No judgment. Aunt blushed, clicking the Vise ejector to life and pretending not to read the search history as she erased it. We can start fresh, no problem. New history, new mission, new name, she mused. Antiope Sable. Where'd you pick up that name anyway? Wolfthrop Employee Registry, I said. Hannigan Sable, he was the library attendant in Scout School, the only employee who had ever referred to me by my true name. Because of my off days, Wash's long bouts of depression that left me unable to attend piloting courses due to my tear-blurred vision, the library became a sort of silent sanctum away from my competitive classmates and harsh instructors. Sable was a devoted atomist, gentle, graying, and just past middle-aged. The griefer was recruited as part of the Phoenix Order. Sable was dark-skinned, unlike the rest of the instructors, and looked down upon by staff and students alike because of the nature of his assigned domain. To be fair, in the colonies, books must be approved by dozens of government officials before publication, swept for swear words, mentions of sex, mentions of violence, and historical accuracy. What was left behind after the butchery was a husk. Not every book was a colony-washed ghost of itself, though. Some were just written that way, to adhere to and reinforce the standards set by the government. Every other book in the library, another volume of Colony Conflict, the most popular series in the colonies. Styled in the form of a debate series, with residents writing in with vaguely treasonous questions to be set straight by the author. I spent Octoverse surrounded by such tomes as Colony Conflict, Doing Your Part Through Reproduction, and Colony Conflict, The Widespread Issue of Kaleidosm Cannibalism. The roundabout explanations inside were dry and desperate for agreement. The social contract of the colonies required 2 signers. This dedication to portraying one view with no true, reasonable acknowledgement of opposition disturbed me in a way I hadn't been able to name until the librarian pointed it out, after I asked him why all the books were boring. Because they're propaganda. It was my introduction to the word, though I wouldn't really grasp the meaning of it for Yushes, till the initiation evasion. It's easier to gain access to restricted areas when you've got a name on hand as an excuse, I said. Sable sent me. I haven't seen him in Yushes, but it's the first thing I remembered when I introduced myself to Cad. This I'd done over that purple hammer he kept on his hip, wrestling with him to convince the mechanic I needed the engine out of the ship he was working under. Cad had installed it, after some convincing. Except then, I'd used a different first name. XGJ 2151, I'd said, Xenogene Sable. Cad's advice had endured to this wash. Drop the Xeno, keep the gene. It'd been his idea, too, to tinker with the spelling, borrowing that J from my birth order designation. In that way, Cad had helped me become me. Antiope Sable. Cadbury shot me a hard and concerned look. Captain, am I missing something? Right. It wasn't exactly planned, I said. I mean, we haven't made any arrangements, but I know some things. Terrans exchange rings, right? And I've heard about rice factoring in somehow. Slow down, Ush urged. Rings? Said Poole. Human custom, said Cad, robotically. Some cultures exchange them, like a way to flag that you're mated. He chewed on this a moment, turning to me. Jean's engaged. It means they're going to be married. Aunt squealed. Aunt Sable. Antiope Sable. Sable. She tasted the name, the future. Moving kinda fast, Ush muttered. Oh, here we go, I said, because this was what everything had been coming to all along. If humans were slaves to their impulses, Xenos were tenfold. Ush had her pedestal above it all, untouched by desire or impulsivity, and I had my mess below. It only seems that way because grievers don't marry, I pointed out. It's been over a yush, and we love each other. And you spent most of that yush in orbit, Ush shot back, just like I knew she would, though her tone simmered into her real talk mode. That last name is a backup plan, Adams. Once you two sign the paperwork, everyone will know, and no one is going to like it. You don't know that, Cad cut in. Things have changed a lot, even just in our lifetimes. Humans, Xenos, Calids, Octals. I've seen so many interkind families in open space. And never in inner space, Ush confirmed. The colonies don't tolerate the things we do. Ares is the colony's incarnate. Ares won't have a choice but to accept us, I said. Marriage makes a family, as far as Terrans believe. It's the first thing we'll do with the Drokans. The permit and the wedding, all in the same wash, the same Auron. My thoughts were racing. Antiope strode to the pilot's seat to stroke my horns, tracing the curves of the hard black cartilage. I shivered. Relax, she soothed. It'll work out. I just know it. Aunt fiddled with the sputtering, staticky radio embedded in the dashboard, twisted the end dials until the disco and funk channel faded into chatter. The Kepler and Councilman has gone back on every running promise for the last decade. A different voice, modeled by poor reception on their cell line. Callcast. Better the griever you know than the griever you don't. Back to the original caller. If you can even call him a griever, after all the shit he's pulled. The line disconnected abruptly, both calls dropping as the host cleared his throat. Looks like we lost the signal. Maybe the both of you will calm down a bit before we come back to you in 20. Remember, your call must originate from an encrypted server. This is Farrah coming at you live following Councilman Cadbury's appearance at People's Pipe and brief but controversial speech. Caller number 5, you're on the air. What are your grievances with the Councilman's language? Councilman Cadbury? Ush looked to Nelson. It's a common name on Kepler. Cad plucked a dirty rag from that leather tool belt to swipe across his sweaty forehead. Adams, you listen to this hot garbage? Shh! Antiope shushed him, twisted the middle dial clockwise just a smidge. She glanced at the clock on the dash. Every day they call at the same time. If I could just hear their voice. The caller's line crackled. They launched into monotonous reciting. Norma, 8, 5, 67, 9, 3. Remember, A-scat, eptical scat. Antiope hurriedly retrieved a notepad from the gray cranny coin, scribbled the coordinates furiously. These are the only numbers they ever repeat. Now I understood. This was her tipster, the stranger who had snitched on the Kaleidozans, and exposed Aunt's friend's death, and, in a roundabout way, the Blunder Lab. I've been reading lots of Olivia Crest. You mentioned, I sighed. And according to her Spy Master's manifesto, every good movement needs a neutral encrypted reporting firm. The numbers, their coordinates, but maybe something in the inflection could tell me who's reciting them, and why. As for the sign-off, it's typical of red suits. Rat Latin, get it? Stay skeptical. Great griever, Crest is a genius! Drool spilled from one corner of Aunt's pretty mouth. On one hand, it was kind of exciting to see her so worked up over someone, even if they weren't me. But Crest was something of a sore spot. Not that I cared about her being Terex's top priority. I didn't want to be. But Olivia Crest was above even me when it came to targets of Ares' wrath. The ex-constable had gone rogue 3 yushes ago, abandoning her post and taking to inner space to repent for all the planet dominating by shrinking into the shadows, for once. Crest didn't stay silent, though. Blowing the whistle on a secretive mining operation on Ross 98, colony prisoners forced to harvest Streaker for slave wages. What would Crest know? I grumbled. She's just some guilt-driven leaker. Exactly, Aunt said, slipping her notepad into the cranny. She's got nothing to lose and everything to gain from spilling the colony's secrets. A total badass. How many riots did she subdue while she was a constable? I said. with that stun stick, with her hot shot. How many is Adams? Ush cut in, and Antiope blushed. Lay off, Ugomir. Cad clapped a hand on my shoulder. I'm happy for you, Jean. Really. That's why we just want you to be safe. I stood so he could wrap his arms around me. I love you, Cad. Cad's hugs had a grounding effect unmatched even by actually landing. Cad's steady steel grip. I looked over his shoulder at Ush and Poole, motioned for them to join us. All of you. They squished in, all of us holding each other in a circle, closing Ant out. I opened it, extending a hand to the constable. And I love Ant too. Poole grimaced as Antiope took my hand and squeezed into our circle. I'm gathering that, said the translations officer, nostrils flaring as they sighed. If you trust her, Jean, then so do I. They stepped back from the hug, but we need to lay down some ground rules. My thoughts exactly. Ush nodded. Some boundaries, like for instance, no sex in the common areas. That goes for any kind. Digital, oral, cyber. Aren't cyber and digital the same thing? Said Cad. Questions like that, first mate, said Ush, are why we haven't needed these rules until now. I fought back laughter as I came to Cad's defense. Give Nelson a break, Ush. We haven't needed those rules because we're all considerate shipmates. Of course I enjoy the, special affection me and Ant share, but that doesn't mean I'm gonna throw my crew's knees out the airlock. There is no Kylix without each of us. There's no Kylix without Cad, Poole pointed out. There's nothing Nelson can't replace. That's just it, I replied. Each of you is a part no one could replace. I looked at Ush, and I wouldn't even if I could. I'm in love with Antiope, and I'm in love with this crew. Dr. Ugomir blushed. I concur, she said. Now, if it gets any warmer or fuzzier in here, we'll have a critical mold infestation. Let's move on to logistics, Captain. What does Adams bring to the table, other than her glowing personality and a 10-ton name? Aunt gaped, straightening in her seat and letting a shade of that constable formality creep into her tone when she said, Pardon me, compeer. I graduated top of my class from the finest institution in the entire galaxy. Yeah, sure, whatever, Poole snorted from their seat. I just mean that you should do your best to stay out of the way. I understand we're all getting to know each other here, but when it comes down to it, you're just some colony college grad whose father gave her the first and only job she's ever had. An immature brewer, a novice farer. Hey, I can get along just fine, Ant protested. Maybe you can, said Poole, but you wouldn't know. Daddy's always stationed you out of the way, promoted you out of danger's way. That shield is gone now, Yuckak. Cad nodded, grunting. They're right. You're in open space, our territory. Just stick with us when things get hairy, and don't try to negotiate over us. We know how to haggle. We know what we're doing. Ant clicked on the visejector. Got it, she said. Stick to what I'm good at. Held a map over the blue scanner. The blinking blue light on the dashboard washed over the image, spitting it back out in holographic form. A map of the Milky Way. I'll chart a course if you set a location. What do you think, First Mate Cadbury? I nodded at the expanse of space before us. Cadbury inspected the holographic map leaping out of the visejector. Blinking red dots springing up to signal where in the galaxy our most recent messages had come from. He clicked on a red dot hovering near Jupiter, the name that expanded out of it. Fenton Hendricks. Hendricks was no Maroon, no Griever even. His message lacked the structure and urgency of the previous two, of any that we'd chanced to listen till then. His pale face sweeping in and out of view as he fumbled with his cell phone, slurring into the mic. Kylix crew! I'm throwing a party in the usual place, and we can use a refreshment. Got any of the garlic batch left? Oh, and what about that? In his excitement, Fenton dropped his phone, and the video blinked back into the dash. Callisto, said Cadbury. If Boners knows everyone, then Hendricks knows everyone else. A little risky, I considered, but it's a residential area. Terrans don't run patrols on themselves, after all. I'd say let's get rid of the blunder and get on with our lives, but Cadbury adjusted the efficiency controls of the Antiox tank. But I prompted. It's only 15 planetons, he said. We'll make it, but our ion belt could use a replacement if we want to make the most of the underground crystals. Your, escape was very fashionable, Captain, but all that weaving really strained the machinery. Excellent attention to detail, First Mate, I noted. Finn's got colony cash, right? Poole nodded. Hush money, more like. Half in drokens, half in dollars. They scowled. He's sort of flaky, though. An Adalite detected us, rotating the Cosmocraft 3 times to declare that we were leaving the Condor Quadrant. Ant chimed in. If he's a colony agent, he might be able to help me get at my porta-deposit box. I left the key back in my ship, but I do have my Envoy ID still. Won't it be under your father's name, though? I asked. Antiope huffed. I'm an adult, Gene. Despite what everyone in the galaxy thinks, I don't let my dad pay for me to coast through life. That's blood money. My constable wages went straight into my mouth most of the time, but I managed to save some for... Well, when I met you, I figured I might need cushion for when I left my post. No more than 10,000, but an ion belt should only be a couple $1,000s. Only? I said. We need drokens, though, Cad said. Trust me, the only belt's worth shelling out 500 for are droken bought. Octal Idazen weaving. Practically indestructible, unlike this colony sewn thing. Well, Ant hesitated. I don't have clearance for that. Taking out money is one thing, but the ID will be flagged if I try to convert, according to Liv Crest anyway. Anyone would convert for a doctor. Ush flashed their League of Galactic Healers ID, the metal card imprinted with her face, the signature of the Lord of Galactic Healers, and an iridescent symbol, 2 snakes coiled around a staff, the words, "Do no harm," inscribed under their tails. Quick thinking, crew, I said. I know this is kind of a meteor in the trajectory, but we'll get through it like we always do. At the shift from idle to thrust, the Kylix rocketed forward, lurching at first, like an injured locust rat, before bounding across the black field. Together.